Empowerment. They're always talking about empowering you, aren't they? They're going to empower this one and empower that one. They're going to empower women, empower the poor, empower minorities, empower workers, empower the so-called developing world, empower the global south, empower Africa. They're going to empower everyone, aren't they? Don't you know when they say that, all they're doing actually is trying to implant weakness in your mind. They want to implant a sense of weakness in the minds of whoever they say that they're going to empower, to make you think that you need someone to empower you in order for you to have any power. You need them to give you power. That's just a psychological tactic for disempowering you, to make you think that the only way you can have any power is by means of their beneficence. Look, the powerful do not empower others. Power doesn't empower, power consolidates. And it never does anything but try to increase itself. The powerful are not going to try to bring you up to their level. Maybe a government will empower you to pay more taxes. They'll empower you to support them, to draft you and fight for them, to defend them. That's all. They'll empower you to serve their own power interests. A corporation will empower you to manufacture or sell or consume their useless goods. They'll empower you to not be self-reliant, to not be self-sufficient, to not be content. They'll empower you with a sense of inadequacy. No one's going to try to give up their advantage over you by making you level with them. This idea of the powerful empowering you or empowering those weaker than them is a myth. It's a tactic for disempowerment. Look, class struggle is like this. Decolonization is like this. If you and I are in a race and you have on running shoes and I have on no shoes, are you going to try to even things out between us by giving me one of your shoes? So now we'll both run lopsided. Meanwhile, the other man in the race is on a motorcycle. So now you and I have actually two options. Either we can decide to not run in that race, because when you put someone in a race that they're not equipped to be in, then you're just fooling them into thinking that they're competitors in that race when they're actually nothing but spectators. So either we choose not to run in that motorcycle race, or the two of us together decide to disable that motorcycle. That's solidarity, and that's the power that we have. And no one can give it to us. We make it ourselves. Don't try to make us fake participants in your competition. You just want us to be the appointed losers in your rigged race. No, you don't empower us by putting us on the racetrack, on your racetrack. Empower us to follow your rules, the rules that you designed according to your power. The only way that we can empower ourselves is to reject your rules and to reject your race and to reject your competition and call you out for the fraud that you're trying to commit and to start following our own rules.
Harris has a complete meltdown when approached by anti-genocide protesters.
And he intends to end the Affordable Care Act. You know what? If you want Donald Trump to win, then say that, otherwise I'm speaking.
How was Kamala Harris not prepared for this in Michigan? The entire narrative of Kamala Harris being more sympathetic to the Palestinians only lasted for 1 week. The strategy of Kamala Harris is to talk to anti-genocide protesters like they are children. Definitely a bold strategy. We see how it works out for you. All the progressives that were celebrating Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are looking real stupid right now. Progressives claim that they could put Killer Kamala to the left. Meanwhile, liberals are cheering their favorite genocidal girl boss for quote-unquote shutting down anti-genocide protesters. How can anyone who considers themselves on the left team up with these scumbags? The fake Bernie Sanders left claimed that they could drag the party to the left, but the only thing that happened was they was dragged to the right. These same people are in damage control mode, claiming that Kamala Harris met with the uncommitted movement, so everything is okay, ignoring the fact that the uncommitted movement is a very small percent of the anti-genocide coalition. The uncommitted movement are people who vote in Democratic Party primaries. Kamala Harris and the Democratic Party will soon realize this, because the only thing Kamala Harris did was open the floodgates. I hope you're ready for Chicago.
What's poppin', my friends and family? Welcome back to RBN Fridays. I am back once again. Speaking of Chicago, my friends, guess who's gonna be there? With the homie Shama Sawan, with the homie Dr. Joe Stein. as I mentioned in that video, Kamala Harris has just opened the floodgates. This is going to be a long 3 months for all these progressives who decide to hitch their wagon with K-Hive. The same people I warned you guys about, the same Marianne Williamson supporters who are obsessed with electoral politics and with the left losing. I told you guys they was going to line up behind Kamala Harris. And now after this happened, these progressives are completely in shambles. And you have the liberals who had to immediately go into damage control mode. And their messaging, this is the messaging that K-Hive want to send out, that Democrat want to send out, that we are the ones who destroy hecklers and protesters. And you see this with all the blue checks, all the Democratic consultants, all the PMC class liberals are saying, oh my God, thank God, our favorite genocidal girl boss slayed those anti-genocide protesters. And once again, I want you guys to understand the class antagonisms. We are the only channel that's willing to talk about this. The fact that we cannot go through electoral politics through a capitalist bourgeoisie system. Class antagonisms are too strong. These liberal class loyal motherfuckers hate protesters because protesters are a threat to their power. Do you understand? And you have these idiots, the true dumb left, the Sam Cedars, the Cal Kalinskis, the Crystal Balls, the Jake Ewers, and the Conspirians. They're advocating going through this capitalist party that hates their guts. Well, probably not their guts, to be clear, because they are pro-genocide. They are pro-war. They are pro-Nazis in Ukraine, for example. But they hate people who are resisting genocide. And this is the genocidal girl boss moment. Look, Kamala Harris just destroyed a heckler. And because of this, here's another one. This is from Kamala Wins. This is like the DNC account. They have these open DNC accounts that spread propaganda. So this is the messaging immediately afterwards. Because they knew Kamala Harris fucked up, and this was her deplorable moment. This is the moment where the floodgates was open, and there were a lot of people that was part of the anti-genocide coalition that was starting to fold. And then this happened, bro. And then they immediately snapped out of their stupid bullshit. Not the grifters who I called out, and I'm going to continue to call it out. Not the people who monetize off the pain of the Palestinian people, but want to support their oppressors, the worst people in politics, the Cal Kalinskis, the Vanguards, the mad good guy politics motherfuckers, these people, you know what I mean? So this is the message of the liberal class in the face of the uncommitted movement, in the face of these liberals who lied to the workers. And we told people this was going to happen. We told you guys this a year ago. We told you guys this 10 months ago, when everyone was pretending they had the back of the Palestinian movement, as people was pretending to support the uncommitted movement during the primaries. We told you to watch these social democrat turncoat motherfuckers. We warned you on RBN, and this is why they hate our guts. Guys, the progressive left hate my guts because I sniffed these motherfuckers out. You understand? We warned you about this months ago. And as they are trying to form a coalition with these genocidal monsters in the Democratic Party, you have liberals that are openly cheering for anti-genocide protesters being shut down. Look, this is from the DNC account. In a remarkable moment, remarkable moment. Yes, our genocidal girl boss shut down the protesters. Fuck freedom of speech. Fuck freedom of speech. Don't you dare consent against power. This is the Democratic Party, my friends. The quote-unquote lesser of two evils, which now the Marianne Wilson supporter, just like I told you, are now selling you on. VP Kamala Harris just demolished individuals protesting at a rally tonight. This is what true leadership looks like, and the crowd had her back. The DNC sellouts, the paid staff. And these are the people that the Bernie left think are allies in this race. The people that would see someone making a passionate argument, there would be a Palestinian explaining how their family was slaughtered by the IDF rape army. And then in response of hearing how someone's family was slaughtered, these people in the Democratic Party would then chant, 4 more years, 4 more years, 4 more years. No, my brother was slaughtered by the IDF. The IDF put a bullet in between children's eyes. 4 more years, 4 more years, 4 more years. The IDF have a systemic system of mass rape, including Palestinian men that was raped to death. 4 more years, 4 more years, 4 more years. These are the people that think is on our side. This is the coalition the progressive left want to form. And right now, because they are in full-fledged damage control mode, they started spreading fake news about Kamala Harris supporting an arms embargo. You had the people in the uncommitted movement who we warned you guys about because they are the people who vote in Democratic Party primaries, who essentially been begging Kamala to give them a way to sheep her people back in the Democratic Party. Why will you vote uncommitted instead of voting third party? Why will you forgive someone like Joe Biden, who, when their administration was informed of mass rape and torture, they said, we let the Israelis investigate it. You guys are claiming they're forgivable? These people who literally lied about seeing evidence of hospitals being used as Hamas headquarters, giving Israel the AOK to commit the worst crimes we ever seen, attacking hospitals. What are we talking about? And the biggest concern that progressives have is that Kamala Harris is not lying to them well. After this debacle, that's their biggest complaint. Here's the biggest member of the K-Hive, Cal Kalinske, who loves Kamala Harris now. And now these people who have made an ass of themselves, as I've been ratioing Cal, going after him, exposed them for quite some time. And they just show how much people agree. Well, I got 2,000 likes explaining how he tossed his entire credibility, going hard for Kamala Harris, implying that she will be better on the genocide, which is by itself genocide denial. And you guys see how his main criticism is not that Kamala Harris is supportive of genocide and support a genocidal pro-rape regime in Israel. That's not his criticism. His criticism is not that Kamala Harris is shutting down protesters. His criticism is that Kamala is not doing a good job at lying to workers. You know, the same way that he lies to workers for a living? He's like, man, come on, man. It's not that hard to lie to people. I do it for a living. Why can't you just say, I hear you? When I'm president, we will have a ceasefire. See, he wants her to lie to people. Hey, come on, Kamala. Why don't you just say, I hear you? When I'm president, we'll have a permanent ceasefire. We're going to stop the war and bring peace. That is not Kamala's policy. Kamala Harris said that she is not going to tell Israel how to engage in war, and she doesn't support an arms embargo. So her saying that she supports a ceasefire, a temporary one that lasts 6 months, just so Israel can get their hostages back so they can continue their genocide, is not the pro-Palestinian position, you ignorant grifter. Why isn't there more anger at these white motherfuckers who make money off of pretending about the Palestinian cause, only to sheepdog people into the people responsible for the genocide? These people are worse than MAGA. At least MAGA is honest about their position. Cal and these motherfuckers are here to mislead. Here's the genocide denial from the biggest fans of Cal Kalinske, Vanguard. Vanguard, who we told you, Savvy, didn't we tell them? We told everyone in the world that every single person that supported Marianne Williamson is going to turn into a Democrat when it turns to August. After Marianne Williamson drops out, these people are going to become Democrats. That is exactly what we told you. Didn't we, Savvy? Yep. And people like, man, Nick and RBN starting drama. We warned you guys about these turncoat traitor motherfuckers. Here are the Marianne Wilson supporters who are now making the lesser two evils argument. The vanguard is now part of the chaos now. Vote however you want, because they say that because they're not influential. That is not the message of RBN. I don't tell you to vote whoever you want. I tell you guys don't vote for the two-party duopoly, or you're not part of my community, period. We don't have genocide supporters in the RBN community. We don't have duopoly supporters in the RBN community. You guys see how they said vote however you want because they don't give a shit. They're suburban white boys who monetize Palestinian pain, Black and brown pain. They have no stake in the games. They're not showing up to Kansas City mutual aid events. You in my neighborhood. Where you at, homie? Where you at? But if you say stupid shit, look, here's the Democrat, baby. I told you they're Democrats at the end of the day. That's why they hated RBN. And you guys notice that every single person that hated RBN are the people who are coming out in support of Kamala Harris. Do you guys notice that pattern? You're not seeing people who are opposed to duopoly going after RBN. You are seeing people who later turn out to be Democrats, who were trying to infiltrate our movement, and then we sniffed these motherfuckers out, and they hated that we exposed them. They hated that we exposed Marianne Wilson and these pro-war NATO leftists. And now he's making an argument that Kamala Harris and the Democratic Party is the lesser of two evils. Do you guys know that Kamala Harris joined Mitch McConnell and right-wing Republicans in order to condemn a UN resolution to oppose illegal settlements in the West Bank? You guys realize the people who engage in lesser two evilism, the people who engage in genocide denial, they are doing that because they don't want to they don't want to acknowledge what their support for the Democrats did to the Palestinian people. So they have to tell themselves in order to sleep at night, man, I think Trump would be worse, man. Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, I know I vote for this. I know I vote for Israeli rape dungeons. I voted for this. It's okay. At least Trump be worse, man. It can't be worse than this. I'm not a traitor. I'm not pro-genocide. Yes, you are, because Vanguard, they voted for Biden. Zach voted for Biden. That's why they hated RBN, because we sniffed these people out. And now they're making an argument. He said if you say stupid shit like Harris Walsh is as bad as Trump and Vance, it's clear you're not a serious person. This is genocide denial. And they say this because they're ignorant. The people who say that Trump will be worse on this issue are ignorant. Now, I've been challenging people on debate for this for weeks now, and no one will take me up on their offer. You had Joe Biden, who fired employees who put evidence of Israeli war crimes together. And you want to tell me that Trump will be worse? I need you guys to give me a solid example of how Trump will be worse. They can't do it. I've been asking for weeks now for them to give me a solid point-by-point example on how Biden will be worse. I mean, Trump will be worse than Biden. You have Biden that built a pier that was used by the United States military and the IDF illegally to kill aid workers. You have Aaron Bushnell who self-immolated because Biden gave the order for the United States Air Force to help Israel with targeting. Joe Biden is helping Israel with targeting, but the Vanguard and these shit libs keep telling you that Trump can somehow be worse. Do you guys see the genocide denial? The implication of saying that Trump will be worse than Biden is implying that Biden is somehow reigning in Israel. My friends, the idea that genocide Joe Biden is reigning in Israel is absurd. That is the implication of saying Trump will be worse. We are post-duopoly. They are part of the Zionist genocidal regime. And Vanguard, Cal, and the progressive left scum are supporting a faction of the genocidal Israeli regime. You know what Tim Walsh, their new hero, said? Tim Walsh said, if you oppose Israeli foreign policy, you're anti-Semitic because you're robbing the rights of the self-determination of the Palestinian people. That is Jewish supremacy that the Likud party advocates for. How do you get worse than that? I need someone to give me a clear example of how Trump will be worse. This is part of a Zionist regime. And if you say that Trump will be worse than Biden and Kamala, that is genocide denial. Coming from people who want to monetize off of Palestinian pain. Kamala Harris and Biden, when told about the Israeli rape dungeons, their response was, we let Israel investigate that. And now there's a national discourse about whether the IDF and Israeli soldiers have the right to rape Palestinian prisoners. And guess what faction is winning? The pro-rape faction, the pro-rape debate side of Israeli society is winning. The prisoners that was caught on tape raping Palestinian men was released by Israel, and it was released to massive applause, my friends. And the position of the Biden administration was, we let this pro-rape society decide whether they are under international law, and they already open about the fact that they're not. So please explain to me with great detail, Vanguard, PAL, and I'm down to have this debate with anyone, how your lesser of two evils argument apply here. I am not saying Trump will be better. I am saying that Biden is doing literally everything Trump would do. And as these people spread the lie, they were spreading the lie that Kamala Harris supported an arms embargo. Oh, Jesus Christ. And you guys realize the pattern? The same people who, oh, Jesus Christ, we got savvy. Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, Jesus. But the same people, savvy, that spread, that were trying to get people to support John Fetterman, Cal Kalinske, the Vanguard, and all this progressive left. Did you guys know that the same people who support the Vanguard is now telling you to support Kamala Harris and Tim Walz? The same people. What's poppin', savvy?
Hey, Nick, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. Thank you for
Okay.
that.
Look, I'm just gonna say this. You know, I kind of had this feeling a while back that after October 7th, some of the people that jumped on to, oh, let's talk about the Palestinian determination, I was kind of keeping my eye on the people who all of a sudden wanted to talk about it now. But when we brought this up like a year or two ago, they said that this was not an important issue. And I want to give credit to where credit's due, because obviously journalists like Abby Martin has been talking about this for years. Dan Cohen, Max Blumenthal, Aaron Mate, Anya Parampil, like they've been talking about it for years, to be fair. But I'm talking about the ones who didn't feel this was an important issue and they jumped on it after October 7th. And I question whether they were being genuine or not. And as we got closer to whether or not Biden's going to stay in or drop out or that kind of thing, notice how some people just ride waves. So like, I believed it back then. Some of those people jumped on that bandwagon because it was trending and it was popular at that point in time. Once it started to die down, notice you don't hear as many of them talking about it and covering it anymore. So that's something too. Then they started to jump on, okay, well, Jill Stein, we heard about what happened at the rally. We are going to support you. They said this on their show to Jill Stein's face. And as I said before, if I were Jill, I would call them out, because I think that is absolutely pathetic that you told her to her face on your show that you would be supporting her. But again, keep in mind, she was trending at that time. Then once Biden decided to step aside and they installed Kamala Harris, all of them jumped on that Kamala train. Even if you look on Twitter right now, even Glenn Greenwald is calling this out. Me and him going to talk about this on Monday. Yeah, because Glenn Greenwald is calling it out. He's like, what the hell is wrong with everybody? Like, you guys for almost a year have been talking about how genocide is a red line. And then everybody just jumped on board after Kamala Harris was named as the candidate, right? Which none of us voted for Kamala Harris. Nobody voted for Kamala Harris in the Democrat 2024 primary. She was handpicked by the party, by the leadership, and just thrown into that position. So nobody voted for her. So explain something to me, Nick. How is it that we're the grifters when these are the people that just jumped on trending waves and support something when it's popular? Notice when it's not popular, they don't support it. They only support an issue or an idea when it is trending and it's popular. So what that shows you is that these people have no morals and no principles. I'm supposed to believe that all of a sudden now they think that Kamala Harris is the best candidate. When Kamala Harris ran for president in 2020, all the people that had channels back then couldn't stand Kamala Harris. Now, let me ask you a question. Why would she be so much better now, considering the fact that she's actually gotten worse on policy? She flip-flopped on Medicare for all. She flip-flopped on fracking. At that time when she was running, she was supporting Medicare for all, and she was supporting a ban on fracking. So she's actually worse on policy now than she was in 2020. So y'all willing to go with what the worst policy is now? So again, I look at the numbers. Nick, you know this. I look at data a lot. And I've been looking at the data, and I noticed all of a sudden some of these people just jumped up in subscribers once they got on the Kamala train or whatever. These are the same people that were calling me a grifter because I was refusing to support the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. So who's really the grifter here? I stand principled when it comes to Palestine. I stand principled on that issue. Nick stands principled on that issue. These are the same people that called us grifters, and they the ones that turned their back that quick and willing to sell out because they want to grow their channel, they want to grow their brand, and they just want to make more money. These people have no morals, no principles, and quite honestly, they should be ashamed of themselves for the fact that they turned their back on the fucking Palestinian people. And let me make this very clear. If they turn their back on them, you don't think they won't turn these are all white people. You don't think they won't turn their back on black people and what we want in this country too? How come none of these people are talking about how Kamala Harris has wronged the black community on policy? I'm not talking about whether or not she's black or Indian. I ain't talking about all that. I'm talking about the policy decisions that she made that has impacted the black community. All these white shit libs are totally fine with going along with it because they are not impacted. Most of these people come from privileged families. Emma Vigilant comes from a privileged family. Yes, the Vanguard, they in the Midwest, but let me make something clear. I interviewed them 3 years ago. They come from a family a lot better off financial means than my family was. So make this very clear. Exactly. These people are not impacted by the decisions that our government makes the way that the black working class and black poor people are in this country. Do you think they're going to throw their hands up in the air? Nina Turner's on Twitter right now asking Kamala Harris, if you want to win with the black, you need to give us reparations. But Nina Turner is not telling people that Kamala Harris took the Freedmen Bank and added Latinos to the Freedmen Bank. Latinos are not descendants of American slavery. So all these people are just fucking clowns, Nick. And we called this stuff out a long time ago. And people said, no, you guys are being divisive when you do these things. No, let me tell you what the divide is. Some of us stand on principle, and some of you just want to get rich and make money. Some of you don't want to go too hard at the Democratic Party because you want those politicians on your show. Breaking Points is in DC, in location in DC. I have seen them have politicians come into the studio. They don't want to heavily attack Kamala Harris because they want to interview Kamala Harris. I wasn't born yesterday. That's what this is really about. So all these people have led you guys down a path of bullshit. And that's why we haven't gotten anywhere. This is the perfect time for the left, the real leftists in this country, to stand together and say, we are not going to support this. We are not going to vote for you to reward a genocide. And nobody, all these people with the big channel, they don't really want to do it because they want to continue to grow their channel. Elections come and go, boo. And right now it's the honeymoon season. When this election is over, a lot of people going to go right back to sleep. We still going to have economic issues because I don't believe that that Kamala Harris is competent enough to figure this shit out. She has no policy plans on her website, not one, no policy platform. The plan is just to try to beat Donald Trump, but they are not going to fix this. And so when all of us at RBN tell you, you need to organize within your community, you need to support the ballot measures that are on the ballot in your state, and you need to build dual power, they don't want to talk about those things because that doesn't help their channels grow. And honestly, some of them are very lazy and they don't want to get out in the streets and do no goddamn work. I never seen them out in the streets for no protests. I never seen them out there trying to do no charity work or no mutual aid. These people just sit behind a desk and want to build their brand. They want to basically become the new MSNBC and all that jazz. And you can add Mark Lamont Hill name to that list as well, because that motherfucker sat up there since October 7th and every day live streamed about Gaza. Every day. He even numbered them on his channel. Gaza 101, Gaza day 102. And he turns around and flips and says, well, voting isn't going to stop the genocide, so we should support Kamala Harris. All these people have sold out.
I didn't have Savvy coming on and just cooking these motherfuckers on my agenda today, but I'm all for it. I'm all for it, Savvy. That was brilliantly said, and these people deserve to be called out. I have my guests here, and I appreciate you guys being paid. I'm gonna introduce my guests here, but they're what they are selling people, Savvy, to your point you made earlier, because you mentioned how Kamala is openly running on neoliberal imperialist policies. You have the right wing that dug up Oppo research on her, pretending to support left ideas. And then the Kamala campaign immediately came out and said, no, guys, we hate progressive policies. We don't support any left-wing policies at all. We're going to govern the same way Biden's going to govern. We're going to govern to the center right, which we know is to the right. And then you have people like the Vanguard and these progressives that are making the argument that politicians run to the right, run to the center in elections, and then when they win, they then shift to the left and then govern better than expected. When has that ever happened? Anyway,
that's a blatant lie, but I'm out. I just wanted to say that, but that is an absolute blatant lie. Again, you know what, Nick? Let her win, though. Let her go ahead and win so we can sit back and prove people wrong and say we told you so.
Yeah, well said, Savvy. Thank you for joining us, even for just a little bit. It's great to hear from you. Savvy and Nick at noon. It's great to have you here. Savvy just cooked them, bro. Cooked them. There's still a lot to talk about. I'm going to bring my guests in here. We have the amazing Shahid Bolsen that will be joining us here soon. Zoya, was there anything that you wanted? I saw you join, but I'll get our guests in here.
I was just making sure everything's good backstage. You guys have a good show.
All right, cool. I was just making sure. Thank you for setting this up, Zoya. I'm going to introduce our guests. We have an amazing journalist, geopolitical analyst, and an amazing educator. We showed a clip of Shahid Bolsen speaking before the show, and I appreciate you being patient. I was expecting Savvy Savs to come on and cook. We also have your, I think this is your colleague as well. It's great to meet both of you guys. And I want to read a little tagline here because I'm not too familiar with work, but it's great to have you on, Nisa, activist from Middle Nation for social justice. So it's an honor to have you guys on, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you guys. Thank you for joining RBN.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. I appreciate you inviting us.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the work that I saw that you was pushing, and I love this this effort that you're pushing here. I'm gonna read this tweet. I'm gonna pass it to you guys and why you organizing this and why you believe it's so important. Here's a tweet. Gaza has clearly become a genocide by veto, and this is what we talk about all the time. How you have the global population that is against the genocidal state of Israel. The only mechanism that consistently protects Israel in regards of international law is the veto, and that's the veto power that the United States and Joe Biden use very, very aggressively, which go back to my point what I was talking about earlier in the stream. If you want the people making these lesser two evil duopoly arguments, making an argument that who's better, Republicans, Democrats, you have a Democrat, Joe Biden, that was using veto power the same way Republicans would. But I'm gonna continue to tweet, and I pass it to you. America's seat at the UN is the main obstacle to peace. join the global movement to have the United States expelled from the United Nations and sign a petition. So Zoya, we're gonna make sure we get this petition shared. I'll click the link here. I'm gonna pass it to you, Shahid. Hopefully, correct me if I'm saying your name incorrect. I apologize. But I thank you for coming on the show. And I want you to speak on this before we get started. That was a crazy intro, but I appreciate you guys for being patient.
No problem. Thanks so much. Yeah, you're saying my name correctly, Shahid. Yeah, so we've been focusing on the Article 6 campaign because you know, if you're familiar at all with the Palestinian situation, which I'm sure all of your viewers and listeners are, and from what I could hear, you certainly are. As I said there, and as we're talking about, the main obstacle to a resolution to this problem is the United States position at the United Nations. And obviously, it's not just a problem with regard to the Palestinian situation, but given the ongoing genocide in Gaza, that was the main impetus for us to focus on the Article 6 campaign, which is Article 6 of the United Nations Charter says that any member state can be expelled from the United Nations if it is found to be committing persistent violations of the principles of the UN Charter. And I can't think of any state, any member state that applies more to than the United States. And even if you just look at what they've done over the last 9 months, it's enough. But if you look at what they've done over the last 75 years, it's overwhelming. It's absolutely outrageous, the amount of violations that the United States has committed. And it's the ability of the United States, or the position of the United States, of domination over the United Nations, which has prevented the United Nations from being able to function according to its stated purpose, which is for the peace and security of the world, to establish peace and security in the world, and to protect the human rights of all people and of all nations, large and small, regardless of their size and regardless of how much they fund the United Nations. It's supposed to be equal. But the United States, obviously, only joined up with the United Nations because they established the United Nations at a time after World War II, when all of the economies of the world had been demolished, when all of the former colonizing powers of the world had been demolished and weakened, and America was the only and the most dominant economy in the world. So they knew that their economic power, given the fee structure in the United Nations, meant that they would be the largest funder, that they would have disproportionate financial control over the United Nations, and therefore they would never be called to account for the things that they signed up to with the charter. They knew that they would never be called to account, but they could call everyone else to account. And that's the way that they've worked it. So since 1945, since they established the United Nations, America has used the United Nations as nothing but an instrument for internationalizing American policy. And I think that Sister Nisa can probably talk more specifically about their use of the veto power and with regards to their funding and how they've abused their funding and so on. But we see that, you know, in fact, at the establishment of the United Nations, that was supposed to resolve the whole issue that we're dealing with now, because because even the recognition of the so-called state of Israel was contingent upon the establishment of a Palestinian state. Yes. So this is supposed to have been resolved since before I was born, since even before my mother was born. But it has been perpetuated and prolonged all of this time until it's reaching the crescendo that it's at now with the genocide, exclusively because of the United States, because the United States has been able to hold the world at bay. It's been able to allow Israel, enable Israel, empower Israel to defy the global consensus. And the global consensus has always been the same, which is that there needs to be a Palestinian state. And I think I'll let Nisa talk more about this.
Yeah, that was a great intro. Nisa, I would love to hear from you. A lot of great information there. Nisa, I'll pass it to you. Welcome to RBN. It's great to meet you for the first time. Go ahead.
Thank you for having me, and thank you, Brother Shahid, for that in-depth introduction. So with regards to the veto power, we believe that nobody has abused the veto power as much as what America has, especially for an ally. What has happened especially in the recent years.
I hope she's not having any connection issues.
Can you hear me?
I can hear her. In the chat, let me know if you can hear her, but go ahead, Nisa.
Okay, and we believe that when you look at the recent months, especially when it comes to the genocide in Palestine, where America has used the veto power to block ceasefire resolutions, when a genocide is happening right before our eyes, they still use their veto power to shield Israel. To ensure that Israel acts with impunity. On top of that, they've used their veto power out of the 14 times in the last 3 years, 12 of them went for Israel. So they are blatantly abusing this privilege that they have, because veto is not afforded to any of the other members. Only a certain amount, 5 permanent members, have the veto power, which is an important tool to ensure that it is meant to ensure that people that are serious are able to ensure that the peace and global security happens. But they've abused it, using the United Nations as a tool to green light crimes across the world, whether it is international, whether it's within your borders in America. They use that to ensure that they get away with it, and they're not held accountable for it. So our campaign is based on the fact that we want to use what is in the United Nations Charter, which is Article 6. And Article 6 is the mechanism that is by provision for the fact that something can be done, which is what we will use to hold America accountable for all the crimes that they've committed over the decades. So when it comes to the funding, a lot of the people will often may believe that the funding with America out of the United Nations, and the funding will then no longer be coming to the United Nations, and that maybe the United Nations would fall. But we believe that that would not be the case. Firstly, when it comes to their contribution as a member state, based on the gross national income, America is meant to contribute about 27% of the peacekeeping budget. But what has happened, Congress has passed a law in 1993 to cap that amount at 25%, meaning that so far for the last 30 years, there is already an arrears of 2%, meaning promises have been broken, contracts have been broken when it comes to what the contribution would be in the first place. However, at the moment, America is also not even contributing the 25%. The last year or so, they've been or the last 3 years or so, there's been a contribution of about 22%. But we found that in January, when they needed to vote or use their veto power to shield a ceasefire or to block a ceasefire resolution on behalf of Israel, they were quick to make that payment and get that payment up to date. So America is perpetually in arrears, not making their promises, not holding to contracts, not making their contributions, which is also a violation of the United Nations Charter. So besides just abusing the veto power, there's also the persistent violations when it comes to crime. It's also the contribution with the funding. Those 3 aspects are persistent violations. They count as violations against of the principles of the charter. Thank you.
Like that was such great information for me too. It's great to hear it. And just like Malcolm X said, there is no intellectual, there's no moral, and there's no legal basis or argument for the state of Israel. And this is why we aggressively had to make the case. Not only is it morally wrong to implement apartheid, not only is it intellectually wrong, as you guys exposed, we have the legal argument on our side. The true terrorists are the Zionists and the Zionist regime that is rebelling against the concept of international law. We had South Africa and South African lawyers who grew up under apartheid, who learned a system that they didn't even create. They learned the system, mastered the system, and it was confirmed that Israel is plausibly committing a genocide. And they continue to put the pressure. They're threatening the United States regime for being responsible for the genocide. So they still have their boot on the neck. But South Africa, a country that was victim of apartheid and colonialism, has mastered Western law. And that's why it's baffling. And that's why we must push back at these psychopaths in the West that have the audacity to call college students terrorists for holding their government accountable for rebelling against international law. And I will pass it to you, Shahid, because I showed this unhinged clip, and they just say this stuff out in the open. We have series I have done that explain how the West is openly embracing Nazism, openly embracing fascism, terms I do not use lightly. Sorry, let me scroll up a little bit. These websites are horribly formatted. And you have the Republican parties teamed up with Chuck Schumer and the Democrats that has been threatening the ICC court. Remember, this is the party that people pretend the lesser two evils. They literally threatening the ICC as they say that Trump is a threat to law and order. They're threatening international law and order. And this is stuff that they say out in the open. ICC prosecutor was threatened because he was told point blank that his court was built for Africa. It's built for Black people, brown people, and thugs like Putin. So I want to ask you guys this because you touched on these themes, Shahid, and I want Nisa to chime in as well. Feel free to take your time and explain this as much as you want. I want you guys to talk about how the United States weaponized international law, bastardized international law in order to serve imperialism. Or if you don't agree, you can put it back as well. I would love to hear your perspective.
Well, I think that most Americans can relate to the old Western cowboy movies, where you have the bank robber, the horse thief, and what have you, the criminal gangs in the West,
Yeah.
and then one of them gets a sheriff's badge, and then he rules the town. This is America at the United Nations. It's the villain, criminal, murderer, gangster, cowboy with a sheriff's badge, and he's got Israel as his deputy, and they're terrorizing the whole country, and they're terrorizing the whole world. They're terrorizing the whole Middle East. They're terrorizing Africa. They're terrorizing Asia, and that's what they've been doing. And they've turned. I won't say that they turned the United Nations into an instrument for colonization. That's what it was intended to be from the beginning.
Absolutely.
But the beautiful thing about it is that because of their hypocrisy, because of their need to appear to be good without actually being good, because they're all about the optics, they're all about the narrative, they're all about trying to present a picture of being a civilized society, that they put on paper certain rules, they put on paper certain principles. And as I said in the beginning, the only reason that they put those rules on paper was because they knew that they were never going to be called to account for it, because they actually only believe in might makes right. And they thought, we'll put these rules on paper so it makes us look good. So we have it on paper. We believe in all of these things. You can't call us out. You can't call us fascists. You can't call us white supremacists. You can't call us colonizers, because we have it on paper that that's not what we are. Forget about what we do. Our words say something else, and that's all you're supposed to look at, because we've got it on paper. And as you know, the entire history of so-called Western civilization, especially the history of America, is a history of broken promises. It's a history of things that they wrote on paper and then did the complete opposite. And then they just put the paper in front of your face so that you can't see what they're doing, or so that you can't accuse them of what you have yourself been victimized by. They distract you and deflect from their own actions by putting the words that they committed to on paper. Because, as I said, they know at the time that they wrote it, at the time that they signed it, they knew that no one had the power to hold them to account. So they put on paper all of these things about equality of nations. They put on paper about human rights. They put on paper about sovereignty. And they even put on paper about the right of defense, of self-defense of an occupied people. They put all of that on paper because they thought that they were never going to have to be called to account for it. But the situation has changed now. Like just when we were talking about the funding of the UN, it's very deceptive when they say, and we get this argument all the time, that the US is the main funder of the United Nations. No, it's not. 22%. So even if it was 25%, that means that the main funder of the United Nations is literally everyone else. 75% of the budget is coming from the rest of the world, and they don't even seem to count, apparently. Only if one nation is funding that much, then they're the only one who counts. But actually, the majority of the UN budget is provided by the rest of the world, and yet that the countries that are providing 75% of the budget don't get any say. Their voices are muted at the United Nations because of America. But as I've talked about many times on my channel, the power dynamics, alhamdulillah, the power dynamics are changing. The power dynamics are changing in the world, and it's changing in ways that America never anticipated. The global South is rising. BRICS is rising, and even measures that they themselves took because of their own ideology, because of their own amorality, and because of their own greed, they empowered from within themselves corporate power. They empowered the private sector with their insistence of the what do you call it? Free market capitalism and so on. They insisted that the invisible hand of the market must not be touched by the hand of government. That the market gets to do whatever they get to do, and government needs to leave them alone. They talk about the separation of church and state, but what they really did was separate business from government and let business do whatever they wanted to do. And now business has surpassed government in their power, which inevitably means that even your domestic businesses, your corporations and so on, your elite, now, why do they need to care about your country? Because they've become global. They've become bigger than you. And now they have interests around the world. They have interests in the global South. And they can see that your demographics in the West, in Europe, in the UK, and even in America, in Canada, and so on, your demographics are collapsing. You're not even reproducing enough to serve the needs of their market interests as consumers and as workers. Meanwhile, the global South is robust in its demographics. It's the youngest population in the world, in Africa, in the Middle East, in Asia, the Muslims, the youngest population in the world. So the demographics are changing, the global power dynamics are changing, and the interests of power are changing to where it's a-national and not nationalistic. So all of these factors are changing the fact that the United States used to have impunity and unaccountability and could never be called to account, could never be called on the carpet, and actually held to the standard that it signed in the United Nations Charter. But we believe, inshallah, bi'idhnillah, that those days are over. And now the global South, the BRICS nations, Russia, China, and so forth. And now we have a collection of countries, of UN member states that are gathered together in an organization that's called the Friends of the UN Charter, or Friends of the United Nations, specifically in defense of the UN Charter, precisely because they can see and have themselves experienced America's violations of the UN Charter. So they came together in defense of the UN Charter, and they can, inshallah, apply for the invocation of Article 6 against the United States and get the United States removed from the United Nations. And then that organization that they put on paper is supposed to be about human rights and about sovereignty, political independence, and economic sovereignty of all the nations in the world. They wrote it down and they didn't believe it. But now it's there on paper. It's a legal fact. And we can call you to account for it because the power dynamics have changed. And now you didn't believe it then, but we'll make you believe it now.
I'd like to add on. I'd like to add what Brother Shahid said about the fact that things are on paper and they don't believe that they will be held accountable for it. A misconception is that they would be able to, once it comes to the Security Council, that they would be able to veto Article 6. But that's not true, because in the Charter, there is provision for that, which is the Article 27, meaning that they will not be able to vote, because this article states that if you are a party to the matter or the complaint, then you need to abstain from that vote. So their veto will not apply. They won't be able to veto this. So like Brother Shahid explained, it's all there, it's all on paper. And because they didn't think that they would ever be held accountable, they put it in there thinking that they would not be held accountable. But it is in there. The mechanisms exist for it to happen. With regards to, the tides are changing, What comes to mind is exactly what is happening now in the Sahel region with Burkina Faso and Mali and Niger, where they're uncoupling from the shackles of colonization. So, that's to me is a good example of how the world is turning its back on the US hegemony and deciding that they're going to do what is good for their countries, what is good for their people. And which is a good thing, because those are the type of leaders that we need right now within the world to make that change. But I do think all of us need to band together. And our way of doing this is through Article 6, by ensuring that there's long-lasting peace. We don't just want something to happen for a month or a year or 2 years. It needs to be permanent. And the way to do that is to remove the corruption from the United Nations, because that is the organization that is tasked for peacekeeping. And we don't believe that we need a new United Nations, or we need to start a new building, or a new organization, because the United Nations, the Charter is a brilliant document. We just need to hold the culprits accountable. And that is why we've decided that Article 6, invoking Article 6, lobbying member states, that is the way to go.
Fantastically said. And you hinted at this, Shahid, a few times. And I'm interested in your perspective, because from my point of view, and we explained this on our channel, American exceptionalism is a scourge and a disease that infected the minds of actually a lot of the global population for a very long time. And in Africa in particular, they are infested with the scourge of sellout leaders. We have Ruto in Kenya, who sold out his people to the IMF, who implement austerity, and it's essentially a race in African politics for decades to sell out your people to the West the fastest. And that's why we are seeing a new African liberation movement pop up, and we're seeing this push from the global population for de-dollarization towards essentially a block against American hegemony. And I try my best not to get my hopes up a lot. I'm a revolutionary optimist at heart, but I'm seeing this organization. I'm gonna read two headlines. I'm gonna get both of you guys' thoughts on this, because you mentioned this of at least themes of it when you were speaking earlier, Shahid. Here's one headline: growing interest in BRICS membership signals consensus among global South. Here's another one, which this is a theme that I've been consistently covering: de-dollarization, the path to global financial freedom. And the United States laid the path to this, their own undoing, because the United States sanctions around 1/3 of the world population, and then countries seeing the Russia sanctions, and it was afraid that the United States can always go after them if they don't follow the United States foreign policy. But anyway, I think I've spoken enough. Shahid, I want your thoughts on this. Where you think this is going? Do you actually think the world is actually serious about de-dollarization? I would love both your guys' perspective on this.
Yeah, I believe absolutely that the world is serious about de-dollarization, and more importantly, although it's a shame that this has to be important, but it is important. I believe that there are major sectors of the owners and controllers of global financialized capital who are also interested in de-dollarization, because, as I say, these what you can call the 1% or what have you, I refer to it as the OCGFC, the owners and controllers of global financialized capital. They're anational. They're not interested. They're not patriots. They don't care how well America specifically is doing. They just want to make their money. They are a nation unto themselves. They care about their shareholders. They care about their dividends and so forth. So they're not. They wave logos, not flags. So they're not interested in what's happening in America. And I think that there is definitely a push for de-dollarization, and there's a push for, in fact, if you think about what China is doing, they're taking money out of the American economy, and they're not returning it to American banks. They're going to keep the dollars. They won't stop using dollars with America. Of course, they can't, at least for the time being. But they're taking the money out when they sell, because, as you know, America is in a trade deficit chronically. It's funny when you talk about them sanctioning other countries. They couldn't survive if they were sanctioned. They wouldn't survive if the countries that they're sanctioned them. They the American economy would collapse. They have a trade deficit. They operate. They import far more than they export, and they don't have a manufacturing base to replace everything that they're importing if it was sanctioned. So China is taking money out of the American economy, and they're keeping it in their own banks. And because of what they're doing, like for example with the Russian assets in Europe, stealing those assets, no one trusts to put their money in dollars and in the American banking system. So they're going to end up draining dollars out of the American economy. They'll still have the dollars, but they're draining it out of the American economy, and it's not returning to the American economy. So there is definitely a de-dollarization effort. I think that now BRICS announced the new money transfer system as a competitor to SWIFT, so that people don't have to be stuck doing it according to the Western system. That gives options to Iran, that gives options to Syria, that gives options to all of the countries that are under sanction. Obviously give it to Russia, although they've been surviving fine. There's definitely a push for this. And I think that the only question about Western hegemony or American hegemony being in decline, there's no question about it being in decline. The question is the extent to which we're going to enter a multipolar world that isn't ultimately dominated still by a unipolar private sector power, corporate power. That's still going to be there. So it's a question of whether of the extent to which the global South countries are able to navigate their relationship with that power, which is still Western based. The corporate power is still Western based. But as I said, that the way that I see it, you can look at you've talked about it now. I was just listening to your program. You were talking about Kamala Harris and Trump, and which one is better or which one is worse, and so on. They represent, in my view, I've been out of America for over 20 years now, so I'm not that familiar with what goes on over there. But Trump represents one faction of the owners and controllers of global financialized capital. Kamala Harris or Joe Biden represents the other. And Kamala Harris and Joe Biden represent the old faction, the neocon faction, the old military-industrial complex faction. And Trump represents more the global-oriented faction, the faction that is interested in relationships with the global South. Trump is very close to the GCC. He's very close to the Arab countries. No matter what people think, or no matter what people talk about with regards to his rhetoric about Zionism, his rhetoric about Israel, and so on. But we know anyway from 2016 that he campaigns one way and his administration is another way. The way he campaigns is very crass and very cynical and very manipulative and exploiting the sentiments of a variety of his demographics, of his core demographics. But the way he actually runs his administration is quite different. He's a deal maker, and what he's interested in is making deals. And making deals means some degree of harmony. It doesn't mean aggression. It doesn't mean hostility. It means trying to arrive at some sort of win-win scenarios with the countries in the global South, with the countries in the Middle East, with the countries in Asia, even with China. And that's the position that's taken. I'm not saying that this is something like very special about Trump, but I'm saying that it shows me his connection to, or his affinity to, or maybe even his allegiance to that faction of the owners and controllers of global financialized capital, who are interested in managing and winning at the end of the transition of the global economy to the global South, which is an inevitability. The transition of the economy, the global economy, to the South and to the East isn't something that we question whether it will happen or not. It's happening, and it will happen. There's not a question about that. There's not another way for it to go. So the only question is to what extent Western powers, Western private sector powers, will be able to manage that transition in a way that they can come out on top, or in a way that they can still benefit and not completely be sidelined by China, and sidelined by the GCC, and sidelined by newly found sovereignty of the countries in Africa and Asia and Latin America. So you have these two factions in the private sector. where you have the neocons. The neocons politically represent the economic interests of the military-industrial complex, and that's Biden and Kamala Harris. That now is the Democrats and the mainstream Republicans. The mainstream Republicans, it's one party. These are the right and the left are just a right and left lane on the same highway, going to the same place. But you have some outliers, and Trump is a bit of an outlier, and he represents, as I say, a type of business interest, economic interest, which then translates to political interest that's more global in nature. And so I'm not sure what was the beginning of the question, I'm afraid.
This is one of the great, this is honestly, you can see the chat here, this is one of the great lectures in RBN history. And after you guys seen Shahid eloquently take down the idea of lesser two evils, I'm gonna just simply ask you before I pass it to Nisa, I would love to hear your perspective. What side are you on? Do you agree with Shahid? Or do you agree with Cal Kalinske? Or do you agree with Cenk Uygur? Or do you agree with the Vanguard? Do they have these kind of high-level geopolitical conversations? No, they're telling you to vote for Democrat. Whose side are you on? I know what it's clear what side I'm on. One of the great lectures in RBN history. I am not lying. Nisa, I'm greatly enjoying this conversation. I know you probably have a ton of thoughts. I'll just pass it to you. Any thoughts, Nisa?
With regards to your question with the de-dollarization, I don't think I have anything different to say than what Brother Shahid said. I also don't believe that it's going to happen overnight. I do see that people or countries, they're making alliances when it comes to the currency that they like to use, especially in Africa, in Asia, and especially the BRICS countries. So me being from South Africa, I'm constantly watching, what BRICS is doing. So yes, I do believe that it is happening. I think it was probably accelerated with the Russia war and the sanctions, and then removing them from the SWIFT system. I think that was something that really caused everything to just start moving forward, even though talks were about it before then. And I also don't believe that it's just going to be cryptocurrency or just gold or just silver or just property or just, I think it will be fair, because not each country offers have, like in Africa, Africa's known for resources. Some countries have something else that they can back up their currency with. So I do think that we will see a different change, and it would be that multipolar world that Brother Shahid mentioned. We do look forward to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have two more main things I want to ask you guys about. I can pick your guys' brains on this all day. It's great to have you guys on. I'm definitely looking forward to expanding this conversation throughout the time, because there's so many things we can hit on, so many different topics we can go into. One thing I want to ask you guys, as someone who is a victim of American politics, someone who's a victim of growing up in this decrepit neoliberal hellhole, this country full of barbarians who have the audacity to judge countries in the global south, even though they don't provide healthcare, they don't provide any good education, they exploit the workers. So I am a victim of someone who lives in this state, and that's why I said you guys are, I think non-Americans are more lucky than they think. There's a small minority of people who live in this country who thrive and benefit off the empire. It's been an argument that I've been made for a very long time that the majority, and I would say the workers, to make everything simple, especially Black and brown people, we are a victim of the United States empire. The cop cities, the use of tear gas, which is illegal in international law, that's a foundation of the military-industrial complex. It's not a coincidence that the IDF trains with the NYPD. Is all connected. That's why if you are a worker, if you're Black and brown, your number one priority should be resisting the empire. The problem is, and this is the issue that many people to my right have, and I show grace to people who don't spread malicious propaganda, but there are a lot of people who are defeatist because our system has been hijacked by Zionist capital. So my question in a nutshell, I'm gonna play the video. It's very short. It's a video. The question I'm gonna ask you guys about what would you suggest Americans do who and how they can help the international peace movement. Now, I'm asking this because you have a lot of these progressives, and I went hard at the propagandists. Those are the people I called out by name earlier. But there are people who are propagandized by them that I actually show a lot of grace. I try to show grace to people who are victims of propaganda because they are tricked by the Kyle Kulinskis. They are tricked by the crystal balls of the Vanguard, and they support Kamala Harris. They support the Democratic Party, not even realizing that there is no chance that Kamala Harris will ever be a supporter of liberation movements. And as I put here, and I have a lot of liberals in shambles on Twitter right now, because I mentioned how Kamala Harris married her AIPAC babysitter. So as you have the uncommitted movement, the progressive movement spreading lies about Kamala, she married her AIPAC babysitter, and he speaks for her on Israel. So this is the position of Kamala Harris, as said by her AIPAC handler husband.
Let me just make this clear. Vice President Harris has been and will be a strong supporter of Israel as a secure, democratic, and Jewish state, and she will always ensure that Israel can defend itself, period. That's who Kamala Harris is.
You guys know I have a fascination with the CIA and the history of the CIA and the history of intelligence agencies. It's very common for these agents to marry each other. It shows your commitment to the cause. And you have Kamala that married this guy who spent his entire career helping Israel lobby money from Americans to provide to Israel. That's what he spent his entire legal career doing. And is it a coincidence that Kamala married this guy? Now she's a lead Zionist in the middle of the genocide. So to get back to the question, I know that was a little mini rant / presentation, but to get back to the main question that you guys can address, what will your suggestions be to the Americans who really want to resist this? How can they help the international coalition? Because we have Bernie Sanders and AOC who support the person who's married to this AIPAC handler. So I'm honestly curious what your guys' take would be on how we can help the anti-genocide, anti-apartheid movement. So I know that was a long presentation, but I would love to hear your guys' thoughts.
Well, obviously, my answer is going to be that you need to support the Article 6 campaign, because to sort of put it shortly, like I said, a Kamala Harris and a Donald Trump are emblems of factions of private sector power. That's all they are. Kamala Harris isn't going to make any decisions. She's not going to make any policies. Neither is Trump. Neither is Biden. Did Biden ever do. I don't think he even could decide which pants to wear. This isn't someone who can make decisions, and it's not someone who. If you're someone who's dealing, if you're in the private sector, if you're a businessman, if you're a CEO, if you're an investor, and you're dealing in hundreds of billions of dollars, are you going to trust Joe Biden with any decision making that's going to affect your money? No, of course not. You're going to trust the constantly tipsy Kamala Harris to make decisions. The woman can't even speak. Obviously, they're not going to look. You're funding the private sector is funding those campaigns. They're making you. They're funding the campaigns and they're lobbying. That means they are. The politicians are employees. Employees don't make decisions. Employees take orders. So it's not a question in my mind about. And even when you talk about AIPAC or Zionism and so on, Zionism, the Zionists, Israel is just a brigade. It's one brigade. It's the Jewish brigade of American imperialism. That's all it is. They're not running anything. They're not ruling anything. They're just connected to the military-industrial complex. So the issue is, which candidate is connected to the military-industrial complex? Which candidate represents the political faction that represents the financial faction that is driven by the military-industrial complex? Well, obviously, that's going to be Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and the Democrats and mainstream Republicans. Because as I said, there's not really a significant difference. But we've seen and I'm not telling anyone that one of them is better than the other. I'm not saying vote for Trump or what have you. That's not my position. What I'm saying is that November in the United States is going to be decided between the two factions of the owners and controllers of global financialized capital. And it's not going to be decided by you. It's not going to be decided by the voters. Do you think that they would give that power to you? They don't even give the power to the politicians that you elect. You think that they're going to give the power to you? Of course not. Obviously not. The same thing is going to happen in America as happened in Venezuela. The same thing is going to happen in America as happened in South Africa. This is a rigged process. And if you think that it's not a rigged process, then I'm very sorry. You're an extremely naive person, and that means that you're the perfect person to be involved in politics in the United States. That's exactly who they want to be active in any political parties, that you should be naive and gullible. So go ahead and do it, but it's not going to turn out according to the way that you think it is. It's not determined according to the process that you think it's determined according to, or the mechanisms that you think it's determined according to. So if you want to deal with the situation of American imperialism, if you want to address and halt American imperialism, whether it's in Gaza, whether it's in Palestine, or in Congo, or anywhere else, then you need to deal with the issue of American imperialism. You need to deal with the issue of American hegemony. And the main instrument that has allowed American hegemony to reach the level of domination that it has is America's presence at the United Nations, and specifically at the United Nations Security Council. And if you talk about even the situation domestically for American citizens, as you said, Black and brown people, people of color, so-called minority communities, even economically deprived people, whatever color or whatever ethnicity they are, they're victims. They're victims of that society. They're victims of a predatory, parasitic system that is designed to keep them down, and it's designed to, as I said, it's parasitic, so it just sucks your blood. That's what it does. And there are so many violations committed by the United States against its own people that they're never called to account for, that they could be brought to the United Nations for, and should be brought to the United Nations for. And if it was committed in any other country, that country would be brought to the United Nations. America would bring them to the United Nations. America would be at the top of their voice, condemning any country that had statistics like America has, that has statistics on human rights like America has. America would be standing there all day long, listing all of the human rights violations of that country. Police violence, police brutality, police shootings, which are nothing but extrajudicial shootings by the security forces, which is the way it would be reported if it was another country. If it was another country that had the same level, what is it, over 1,200 people murdered by the police, I think, last year, or more than that. That's 1,200 something extrajudicial killings by the security forces. Imagine if that happened in North Korea, if that happened in Pakistan, if that happened in Iran, what America would do at the United Nations. All the condemnation that they would do, all the resolutions that they would do, all the sanctions that they would impose against any other country that had a statistic that's as abysmal as America's. 43,000 people murdered by gun violence in America last year. 43,000. 650 mass shootings in America last year. Over 650 mass shootings. That's like a war zone. Your country is like a war zone. There's more people. You're safe. You're probably safer in a war zone than you are in any American city. And you know, when you have your soldiers going over to Iraq or going to Afghanistan or wherever else to do their colonial project, they all come back with PTSD. But they're safer over there than they are in Chicago. They're safer over there than they are in Detroit. They're safer over there than they are in New Mexico, in California, in Los Angeles, in New York. They're safer in Iraq than they are over there. So what about the people who live there every day? What kind of PTSD do they have? What kind of victimization do they have? And then not to mention even the incarceration rate in America. You're only about what, 3, 4, or 5% of the global population on Earth? The American citizens, only about 3, 4, 5% of the population on Earth. But 25% of all of the people in the world who are in prison are in American prisons. 25% of all people in jail are in jail in America.
Yes.
You're telling me that you can't go to the United Nations and make a resolution about that? That's not a violation? That's a violation of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It's a violation of the civil and political rights. On and on and on. There are so many violations that America commits against its own people that you don't even have to look at their foreign policy. You don't even have to look at their foreign policy to see their persistent violations of the UN Charter, of the principles of the UN Charter. So yes, American people, white, black, brown, whatever you are, whatever ethnicity you are, you should support Article 6 and get America expelled from the United Nations, because then maybe the United Nations could actually take your country to the United Nations and make it face the consequences of their own violations against you. No one's there to protect you. Your government isn't there to protect you. They're the ones victimizing you. So you need someone from outside. You need the world to step in to stop the violations that are being committed against you. And that can't happen as long as the United States is dominating the United Nations.
If there's ever any RBN stream you guys are going to share, it should be this one. And we need everyone in the RBN community to check out Middle Nation, one of the great lectures of RBN, banger after banger after banger. I told you guys, I want to get Nisa in here. Good luck following that. But I would love to hear your expertise. Anything else you want to add to the conversation? We will begin to wrap up here very soon. I appreciate you guys' time and your guys' wisdom. There's going to be a lot to discuss. Hopefully, guys can have you back on here again soon. Nisa, anything else you want to add? Once again, I'm just blessed to be part of this conversation because so much wisdom and revolutionary knowledge that is shared here that is lacking in the United States left. And it's been painful. And this is why the United States left have been considered a joke. And I'm doing everything I can, just as a little soldier, to change that. So I'm just motivated to hear this. So, Nisa, I'll pass to you in for any thoughts. Anything you want to add to this conversation?
Sure. Right off, with regards to what Brother Shahid said about the United Nations, being used as a tool, especially for the military-industrial complex. What I find very baffling is when it comes to the way that America takes care of its citizens, like you even touched on it, it does not. Those same veterans that go and fight those wars in other countries, go and bomb other countries, when they come back to America, they are homeless. The homelessness in America is increasing. And a large portion of that are from the veterans that has come from war, where America does not even take care of them. And that is for me, that is something that shows just how much they do not care about its citizens. So, like Brother Shahid said, support the campaign so that at least the United Nations is able to function the way that it is intended to function, because that is the body, that is the organization that is meant to protect the world from wars, from brutality, from bullies, from all these atrocities that happens, whether it is in one country, this continent, it does not matter, whether it's domestically, whether it's internationally. I think we all deserve to live in peace, but it is because America gets involved in all these different countries, whether it is through violence, whether it is through coups, whether it is through elections, like you mentioned, the one in South Africa recently. So it is time that America is held accountable. And once America is held accountable, all other countries will also begin to see that accountability is on the table. We will be making an example to hold United States of America accountable. So thank you for that.
Yeah, well said. And we'll begin to wrap up here very soon. But one thing I'm
sorry, brother, to cut you off. But I just wanted to say something else with regards to what I would hope, and what I would advise for the average American citizen, especially if you're from a so-called minority group. You should feel an affiliation, and you should feel a solidarity with the people of the global South, because your situation is not that different. Your situation is not that different. Their countries in the global South, whether it's Latin America, Africa, or Asia, or wherever else, the Muslim world, the Arab world, were colonized. You're being colonized now. Your country's being colonized. This is something that I didn't touch upon when I was talking about how private sector power is no longer nationalistic. Now you are up on the chopping block. America is up on the chopping block, just like everybody else was, just like the global South was. And now the roles are going to be reversed. What we've seen through up until now, the relationship between the West and the global South, or the global North and the global South, those roles are going to be reversed in the next century. So your country is up for colonization. It's up for neoliberal colonization, corporate colonization. And you're going to be in the same position that we've been in for all this time. That's already happening. And you can see it already happening. And America is going to get more and more isolated. It's going to get more and more vulnerable because of isolation. You know, we were talking about it on a stream the other day, how geopolitically America is in a very advantageous position because it's got oceans on either side. It's untouchable. But what happens when the rest of the world doesn't want to attack you, but they just don't want anything to do with you? Those oceans protect you if people are interested in attacking you, but those oceans become massive walls. It's a prison cell when nobody wants to have anything to do with you because you're very easy to isolate. And this is what's going to happen to the United States. And as I say, it is already happening now. So the people in the United States, you need to start having the mindset of the same people in the global South. You need to start having the same mindset as the people in Niger, the people in Mali, the people in Burkina Faso. You need to have the same mindset as the people in Venezuela. You have to have the same mindset as the people in the EFF in South Africa. You need to have the same mindset as people in the global South. In other words, those are your brothers and sisters. Those are your compatriots. Those are the people that you should have solidarity with, not with some Democratic Party and not with some Republican Party. Neither one of them cares about you. They serve the interests of the ones who are paying them. So you need to serve, you need to connect yourself and feel a solidarity with people who are going through the same kinds of things as you, and people who have experience going through the kind of things that you're about to go through. You need to connect yourself with the people in Latin America, the people in Africa, the people in the Muslim world, the people in Asia. That's who you need to feel an affiliation with. Stop even thinking about yourself as an American. Stop even thinking about yourself as someone who comes from a so-called country or a so-called civilization. That so-called Western civilization never actually cared about you. So why should you care about it? You should feel an affiliation and a solidarity and a brotherhood and a friendship with people who are in similar conditions as you are, and people who have gone through what you're about to go through, because they can help you if you build those bridges with the global South. I mean, think about this. Think about, for example, the African American community in the United States. They have what I think they have, the last time I checked, they have something like if they were a country, if the African American community in the United States was a country, they would be richer than Canada. They'd be richer than Australia. They would be a major economy. They have something like $1 trillion, over $1 trillion, maybe it's close to $2 trillion. If the African American community in the United States was a country, they would join BRICS. They would apply to join BRICS, and they would be one of the most influential members of BRICS. So you should start thinking about yourself this way. Think about yourself as a country within a country, and support what the global South supports. And the global South and the international community, I hate to even use that word because it's been misused to just mean the West. Yeah. The global consensus. Support what the global consensus supports. Support the interests of the global consensus, the countries of the global South, and consider yourself a part of them. And then we can consider you a part of us. And then we won't have the animosity that we have. We won't connect you with your country, because we know anyway. Everyone in the global South knows that you're actually suffering over there. Everyone knows what the situation is for Black and brown people and for poor people. Everyone knows that when we talk about the West, we're talking about your governments and we're talking about your powerful people. And we know, but here's the thing though. We know it, but I don't know if you know it. That's the problem. We know this about your situation. We know this about your society, but I don't know the extent to which you actually know it, because you're still talking about Democrats and Republicans. Like you haven't gotten the memo that you're being colonized, and it's going to be this colonizer or that colonizer. It doesn't matter. Stop thinking in this way, and you need to start thinking as if you are already, your community, already a member of the global South. That you're already a member of the global South, and think in those terms and act in those terms. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, decolonize your mind, as I always say, and this is why, and I feel extremely motivated, and because this is why I've been preaching for quite some time. This is why I don't feel any attachment to the United States left. This is why I have disdain for the scourge of Black capitalism in our community that not only sold us out to a police state, but they sold out our fellow African brothers and sisters, our fellow brothers and sisters in the global South, which is why my main focus, my main criticism you see from the professional managerial class scum against me is they're like, why Nick so focused on foreign policy? Now, Nick is always focusing on other countries. Because we are living in the most brutal, violent empire in human history. And if your main focus is not holding that empire accountable, you are failing. That's my main focus, is to bring this empire to heel. And all these culture war distractions are exactly that. I get criticized for not dabbing in the culture war. And if I'm not serious about that, that's unserious. We have an empire to take out. We need to come together as an international anti-imperialist coalition, which is what we've been building, which is why it's great to have you on the show and this wisdom and this lecture, which is exactly why I've been advocating for the show. So once again, if there is any stream on RBN you're going to share, this is the one, guys. This is the banger of all bangers, because this is exactly what we was advocating. And this is what I want to transfer to the United States left to at least the best of my capacity, which I'm already happy about, that we build a community with people whose minds are decolonized, who are not buying into this neoliberal nonsense that Shahid just brilliantly dismantled. So these lectures are very thought-provoking. I want to get Nisa in here as well for any last thoughts. Shahid, you can have last word as well. I want to be respectful of your guys' time, because we definitely got to do this again. A lot of topics that we didn't get a chance to cover. Once again, I'm very motivated by this stream. This was a fantastic stream. Nisa, I'll pass it to you. And Shahid, feel free to chime in with any last words after she is done as well.
I think that firstly, before we finish off, thank you so much for having us. Last thoughts, like you mentioned, I think we all need to come together so that we can unseat the corruption within the United Nations. I do believe that it's the precursor to peace, Article 6. By invoking that, we will have at some point world peace, long-lasting peace. And I think that the main important part is that we need to work together, because when we work together, we are able to do many different things that will have positive results. So that's the last thing that I would like to say. So thank you very much.
Is there anything that you guys want to plug or promote? Shahid, I'll give you last word before I get in my little promotion real quick. Shahid, any last words?
Well, I would just remind everyone to please go to the link that I'm not sure where we might have it, but you can go to change.org and look for the Article 6, invoke Article 6, and sign the petition. And I'll just say, we didn't talk as much about Article 6 as I would have hoped, but it was a brilliant conversation. MashaAllah, it was very enjoyable. But I would say that just to clarify for anyone, the petition isn't an end in and of itself. So if you have some question in your mind about, well, what's the use of a petition? The point of the petition is to give us a gauge of popular grassroots support for this measure. That then once we get to 100,000 signatures, then we can elevate what we're doing to the political and diplomatic level, and we can approach member states so that they can invoke Article 6 and make this happen at the United Nations. So please, there it is there. Sign the petition, and if you can, share it with family and friends. It says there, I think once you sign it, it gives you the option to chip in, which means that they want money. That money goes to GoFundMe. That doesn't go to us. So there's no need to chip in. I think GoFundMe is going to survive. So I think if you just, sorry, not GoFundMe, change.org. If you just share it, then you have the option to either chip in or share it. So just share it, and we can get, inshallah, to our goal of 100,000, and then we can elevate it to the political and diplomatic level. So that's the main thing that I would want to plug. Also, I would ask for people, if you're interested, to join us at Middle Nation, which is a global collection of regular people, activists, intellectuals, academics, and so on, both Muslim and non-Muslim, though we are Muslim in nature. We have a Telegram group. Obviously, we have the YouTube channel. All of these links, I think, are on the, if you go to the YouTube channel, you can join the Telegram group. We have a lot of discussions there. We have book discussions there. We have country groups where you can have conversations with people from all different parts of the world and get on-the-ground information from those different regions. And if you start engaging in that, then we can start in the process of building bridges to where the people in the United States or the people in the West who are actually basically honorary Global South citizens, because you're, as I said before, you're suffering the same types of things, and you're about to suffer the same types of things that we've already suffered. So you can start building those bridges with people who in similar situations as you, and who've experienced similar things as you, and then you can realize that there's no that trying to force you into a self-definition according to the basis of a nationality is just a way to divide you from people who you actually have things in common with.
Yes.
To say that you're an American. So what you were, Brother Nick, you were criticized for talking about foreign policy. Who said it's foreign?
Yes.
It's not foreign to me. Those are the people who are going through what I'm going through. Those are the people that I have things in common with. It's not foreign to me. It's only foreign to me if I think of myself in this box of the United States as an American. So I'm only supposed to care about domestic issues, so-called domestic issues. But this is how they just define your world for you and define what you're supposed to care about for you, to make sure that you don't actually get to act upon and build relationships and solidarity with people with whom you have real common interests. So if anyone is interested, you can come to the Middle Nation Telegram channel and join in the discussions and look around and see. And that's also where we do most of our organizing for the Article 6 campaign. So that's all. Thank you so much again for hosting us today.
It was an honor having you guys on, and make sure you guys follow Middle Nation. I know I definitely will. I got to binge watch the library now after this one. Thank you guys.
Videos, man. It's like 1,000 videos.
Yeah, I'm a binge watcher. Trust me. I'm behind. Zoya put me on, but I'm about to binge watch Middle Nation after this show. I'm honored to be part of this show. And hopefully we can come back on and plug this again. I will plug this as much as you guys need me to. So thank you for coming on.
I'm very happy to build a connection between RBN and Middle Nation, inshallah.
Same here. Absolutely. Thank you. And I'm going to put you guys in the back. Thank you for your time. I'm going to do my last little super chats and plugs. I also have a great announcement. I'm very proud of the RBN community. We did it, guys. Remember I told you guys I made a promise to this Black barbershop owner that we're going to help fund and facilitate the mutual aid event. We were giving free haircuts, free clothes, free clothing away on the 19th. And I was like, fuck, unfortunately, I got to be in Chicago. God damn. But the good news is I'm meeting with this guy tomorrow. I'm going to see if he needs any volunteers. I got some KC homies that maybe will volunteer. We're going to fund, get some clothes. I'm a Spanish project because when I talked to my barber, the guy who fucking made me look sexy as shit, right? I was like, bro, do you need any help with funding? What do you need help with? And he's like, bro, I need help with everything. So I was like, bet. So because of you guys, you guys know we raised $500 in less than 24 hours for the Kansas City Mutual Aid, which will allow us to greatly expand the action on the 19th. Anything that we have extra, I'm gonna buy clothes to try to give away. We have some more donations that came in. I gotta check Venmo overnight, but as of like 10 o'clock last night, we had like $500. Hell, we had over $500 because I didn't even count Cash App. So I think we near like $600 of mutual aid funds. Holy fuck. Bro, we had 3 mutual aid events across the country within the last few weeks. You guys realize that? Savvy had an event in Boston. JB just had a massively successful event in Orlando. Now I have this event on the 19th that I will be helping, and I will see if I can help provide manpower. Maybe pay the barbers because they're giving away free haircuts. So I'm sure that they're probably losing on income. So if we can raise more money, shit, I might talk to the dude because we having a meeting tomorrow and say, hey man, I might be able to even pay the barbers for providing free haircuts. Maybe we can do more free haircuts. I don't know, man. But it was a great first day. That's all I'll say. I'm very proud of the community. I'm very proud of all you guys. Without you guys, we couldn't make it happen. This is the mutual aid societies that we talk about. This is the mutual aid society, bro. I cannot wait to talk to this guy because I've been holding it back. I haven't told him yet because I'm like, bro. When I was telling him, when we talked, we met a few times when I was talking to the guy. He was excited, but there's also that hint of, I don't really believe this nigga. We see, I'm not gonna turn this motherfucker down if you want to help, but I'm not gonna get my hopes up. Bro, once I hit this man up tomorrow, that reaction is about to be golden, bro. And it's because of you guys. We're building connections. We're building mutual aid societies across the country. And we are literally living the vision right now that I always imagined for RBN. The vision that I always wanted for the channel. And all the conflicts within this channel came from any time we will any variation of this. This is the only thing I care about. This is the only value that having the channel actually provide is to radicalize people, to mobilize people for the cause. This is what I shared on YouTube. I have stuff on Twitter as well. This will be my last plug. For the event, I think we're good, but any extra that we raise, I will just only expand the event to provide more clothing. Because I know he focused, when I talk to him, he mostly focused on school supplies and the free haircuts, but we can add fucking lot more to that. So I'm very excited. We're going to have this meeting Saturday. I'm also going to have the Kansas City Worker Strike Back launch event. That's on Sunday in Kansas City. While I'm speaking that. So if you're in Kansas City, make sure you check out your boy. You know what I mean? Always great to meet you guys. So this is going to be a busy month, as it always have been. But it's game time. Thank you guys for supporting me. I'm gonna continue to put this in the back. I'm gonna put myself in the back because I don't feel like being on screen no more. But I appreciate everyone for supporting my mutual aid and making sure that this was successful. JB's mutual aid event in Orlando was a massive success. Stabby had a massive success. So RBN is rising, guys. We're making these international connections with Middle Nation, with all these amazing guests you had over the weeks. And things are only going to get better. I'm very excited about the revolutionary direction that this channel is taking and the fact that our community is mobilized in this time. So if you haven't done a lot for the movement, don't feel bad. Don't feel ashamed that you haven't done enough for the movement. Now is always a good time to get started. If you have any mutual aid chapter, any organizing in your community, help them out. And if you don't, be the change you want to see in this world. So thank you guys for all your support. I'm gonna have a busy ass fucking month. Oh Jesus. I gotta get a speech in a few days. So I'll see you guys Monday, I think. Have a good one. Please share the stream. Take care.